Hi, hello, my name is Montserrat and I am the program director at the Yoga Therapy Institute. So, what is the difference between a yoga teacher and a yoga therapist? If you are a yoga teacher yourself, you've done your 200-hour yoga teacher training, you probably have learned, depending on the lineage, some aspects about yoga philosophy, some practices about how to do certain asana poses and some breathing techniques and maybe some restorative or relaxation practices, and how to adjust individuals that are doing these practices. So you're maybe taught, what should be the alignment of the spine when you're doing Trikonasana? Should you turn the hips or not turn the hips? Where should the foot be? And it's basically a training that relates to adapting the person to asanas, adapting the person to yoga, so that we can achieve certain alignment, a certain sense of well-being, that we are going to breathe functionally. But the idea is from the person. So I am a person, I am either a yoga teacher or a yoga practitioner, and I'm going to look to get to that shape that I'm seeing in my yoga book, or my instructor, my yoga teacher, is demonstrating. Now, however, yoga therapy goes the other way around. So in yoga therapy, the yoga, the asana, the breathing practice, the relaxation techniques, they're going to be adapted to the individual. So the first thing that we're going to look at is at the person. So that is the main difference. In yoga therapy, we look at the person, not at the yoga. The person comes first. And that comes from a whole person approach. So looking at not only the physical aspects of that person, but also emotional issues of the mind, also environment relationships. So what is going on with them? You're not going to be the same person if you're going through divorce, or you have an empty nest syndrome, or maybe you just lost a pregnancy. So your relationship with yourself and with the environment around you is also going to be crucial and very important for us. We're going to look at, of course, the symptoms of disease, side effects of medication, even where you live and your social economical situation, because we know that actually that can affect your health. So it's a whole person approach. Physical, or the different layers, physical aspects, energetic aspects, looking at how you're moving, how you are feeling physically, any symptoms, also how are you breathing functionally, are you breathing dysfunctionally like all of us are you a high chest breather, low chest breather? Is that causing anxiety? Is that causing some negative thoughts? What's going on in your mind? Are you sleeping well? Are you digesting well? And so on. So that whole person approach, that is where we actually set off from yoga therapy. That is the platform from which we do our work. So once we learn about the person by doing a very thorough intake, I have to tell you, and also so a lot of questions that we ask about your health, and also there's a lot of questions and inquiries that we do about your physical movement, how you feel. And we're not talking asanas, we're talking simple movements, and also breathing. How are you breathing? And can you lie down on a restorative practice? Because a lot of us, they say, oh, restorative. But I always say, make sure that when you put somebody on the ground, that they can stand up again. So that's all the areas that we're going to check. Now, once we understand everything about the person, we're going to adapt yoga to that person. And for that, of course, you acquire a different kind of knowledge than in yoga teacher training. We're going to assume that you've already learned your asanas, which, by the way, this is very difficult these days because there's so many different types of yoga. You haven't learned the same asanas in yin yoga than in yang yoga, than in yin yang yoga, or that in hatha yoga, or in kundalini, or in ashtanga. So as a matter of fact, this is quite a difficult job to do, because we're going to work from generally basic hatha yoga practices, adapted and modified. But more and more these days, we're having to introduce other practices that come from other lineages and schools of yoga, of course, because we live in a world where everything is connected. So we're going to adapt yoga practices, and it's a little bit like a Mary Poppins bag in the yoga therapy training. You're going to have a bag of tools. You go into the bag and you go, this one is for you. But why? Because you have headaches, and also because you have difficulty sleeping, you have neck pain, and also you have arthritis. So this is the one that I get out of my Mary Poppins bag, and I'm going to apply and I'm going to adapt this practice to you rather than the other way around. When you go to a yoga therapist, you're never going to look up to somebody who's sitting on a platform performing a pose or performing a practice and you're going to follow them. That's not going to happen. The yoga therapist is going to come to you. I'm going to say, okay, so what's going on? Can you move like this? Can we do like that? How do you feel the breath? What's going on here? And they're going to adapt the yoga to your needs and to your abilities and to your limitations. That includes, on a lot of occasions, quite a lot of soft yoga, but sometimes we need to do something a little bit more activating. Whatever it is that we need to do, it will be adapted to the individual. So that is the main difference between yoga therapy and yoga teacher training. Now, of course, as a yoga therapist, the session is going to be one-on-one, is going to be person-focused, and there's going to be a progression. And when we mean a progression, we don't mean that, oh, you're going to be able to touch your toes now. No, nothing like that. So I have clients who come, for example, with symptoms of autoimmune disease, Hashimoto's, for example, or fibromyalgia. And with fibromyalgia, we know that there's intense pain throughout the whole body, so the movements have to be very slow, very person-adapted. We have to introduce very slow breathing. And it can come also with some anxiety and depression. So when I mean progressive, I mean that slowly, yes, we're going to improve the symptoms and the way that that person feels about themselves. Also, how they're going to sleep at night. They will get tools, how to lie down without pain in bed. We may give them some homework to do, maybe some simple joint rotations, maybe a simple breathing practice that they can do every night before they go to bed. So we're going to have a little bit of a plan. So it's not just like you turn up, we do a practice, and, off we go. Let's just try and do a headstand. Headstand is not the goal of yoga therapy. Being able to touch your toes is not the goal of yoga therapy. The goal of yoga therapy is to be able to work in a safe way, safe manner, without harm, with an individual, adapting the tools of yoga to that person in order to serve that person. So we're not serving the yoga and the dogma of yoga. We're not serving an ideal asana, an ideal body form, an ideal kind of breath or pranayama, but actually we serve the person with the tools of yoga. So that is the main difference, I think, between yoga therapy or being a yoga therapist or being a yoga teacher. You can become a yoga therapist if you are a yoga teacher and you want to carry out more advanced studies, dive deeper, and then dedicate your work and your life to serving the individuals, the person, as a whole person approach using the tools of yoga.